Lilia was an energetic and curious little girl with a heart full of compassion. One bright afternoon, she and her mother, Anna, decided to visit a local animal shelter. Lilia had been dreaming of having a dog for as long as she could remember. She had heard from her friends about the joy of having a furry friend to share her days with. Today, the time had come for her to take a closer look at the shelter's dogs. The shelter was a large building with several rooms, each filled with cages, each housing a different dog. Some dogs were wagging their tails eagerly, some were barking excitedly, while others just lay quietly in the corners, looking at the world with tired eyes. Lilia's eyes sparkled as she walked through the aisles, her heart racing with excitement. She was trying to figure out which dog would be the perfect companion for her. Anna, on the other hand, was more cautious. She wanted to make sure that Lilia understood the responsibility of taking care of a dog. "We need to think carefully, Lilia," she said gently, keeping a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "A dog isn't just a pet. It's a responsibility. We need to make sure the dog is healthy and that we can take care of it properly." Lilia nodded, but deep down, she knew that she was ready for the responsibility. She wanted to find the dog that would be her true friend, one that would stick by her side through thick and thin. As they walked along the rows of cages, Lilia stopped suddenly. She spotted a dog in the far corner, lying quietly with its head resting on the cold floor. The dog's fur was matted, and its eyes looked tired, as if it had been through too much. Lilia's heart sank when she saw the dog's sad eyes. It was a German Shepherd, its large frame slightly hunched as if weighed down by invisible burdens. Lilia approached the cage, her hand gently reaching out to the bars. She looked closely at the dog, noticing the lifelessness in its fur and the deep sadness in its eyes. Despite its condition, there was something about the dog that drew Lilia in. She could feel the sadness radiating from the dog, and she knew that it needed help. Anna, who had been walking beside her, also stopped when she noticed the dog. She could see the concern in Lilia's eyes, and she could tell that her daughter was moved by the German Shepherd. Anna stepped forward to speak to one of the shelter staff. "Excuse me," she said softly. "What's the story behind this dog?" A kind-faced woman approached them, her expression somber. "This is Max," she said, her voice tinged with sadness. "Max has been with us for a while. He's been very sick, and his condition has been worsening. Unfortunately, he doesn't have much time left. We were scheduled to euthanize him this week." Lilia's heart skipped a beat. She felt a lump in her throat as she looked at Max, his sad eyes staring back at her. The thought of him being put down was too much to bear. She couldn't understand how anyone could make such a decision for him. The shelter worker continued, "Max's health is declining, and there is little we can do. We've tried treatment, but it hasn't worked. He's too far gone, and the vet believes that the kindest thing is to let him go." Lilia felt tears welling up in her eyes. She couldn't accept this. Max deserved more than to be forgotten in a cage. He deserved a chance at life, a chance to be loved and cared for. "Can we take him home?" Lilia asked, her voice filled with determination. Anna hesitated, looking at the sickly dog with concern. "Lilia, we don't know if we can help him. He's very sick. It might be too much for us." But Lilia shook her head, her small hands gripping the bars of the cage. "Please, Mom. He needs us. He deserves to live. We can help him, I know we can." Anna sighed deeply, torn between her worry for Lilia's safety and her daughter's overwhelming compassion. She could see the passion in her daughter's eyes, and it touched her heart. She knew that Lilia wasn't going to back down, no matter how hard the situation seemed. The shelter worker, who had been listening to their conversation, stepped closer. "It's not easy," she said softly, "but if you truly want to give Max a chance, we can try. It's going to take a lot of effort, but he deserves to be loved. Maybe with proper care, he'll improve." Lilia's face lit up with hope. "We'll do everything we can," she promised, her voice filled with determination. As Lilia turned her attention back to Max, she took a deep breath. Despite his weakened state, something about him spoke to her. She didn't know what it was, but she felt a connection, a bond that she couldn't explain. "Max," she whispered softly, I'll be your friend forever." For a moment there was silence. Max's tired eyes met Lilia's, and something in his gaze seemed to shift. It was as if, for the first time in a long while, he could feel a flicker of hope. He lifted his head slightly, his eyes locking onto Lilia's. It wasn't much, but it was enough to fill Lilia's heart with warmth. She knew then that she had made the right choice. Max deserved a chance, and she was going to do everything she could to give him that chance. Together with her mother's support, Lilia was ready to take on the challenge of helping Max heal. Little did she know, this moment would mark the beginning of an incredible journey that would change both their lives forever. The decision was made. Lilia and Anna filled out the necessary paperwork, and within hours, they were ready to take Max home. The shelter staff helped prepare the dog for the transition, and as they loaded him into the car, Lilia sat beside him, gently holding his head in her lap. Max, still weak, barely moved but seemed to sense that something was changing. Lilia's presence, her gentle touch, seemed to offer him comfort in those moments of quiet. The drive home was filled with anticipation. Lilia couldn't stop talking about how they would help Max get better, how she would make sure he felt loved every day. Anna listened with a mix of concern and hope. She knew that Lilia's heart was in the right place, but she also understood that the road ahead might not be easy. Max's condition was serious, and it was going to take time and patience to see any improvement. When they arrived home, Lilia carefully helped Max out of the car. His legs were shaky, and he struggled to stay upright, but Lilia's soft voice and reassuring touch seemed to help him find his balance. She led him gently into the house, showing him the space where he would rest, the corner where he could sleep, and the garden where he would one day run. Anna set up a comfortable bed for Max in the living room, placing blankets around him to keep him warm. They had prepared everything, but it was clear that the journey to recovery was just beginning. Lilia couldn't wait to start helping him feel better, but she also understood that patience was key. Max needed time, care, and love, things that would take more than just a few days to heal. Over the next few days, Lilia focused all her attention on Max. She spent hours sitting by his side, talking to him softly, and offering him small treats to encourage him to eat. Max was reluctant at first, his body too weak to enjoy anything, but slowly, he began to take a few bites here and there. Lilia was overjoyed. Even the smallest progress filled her with hope. Anna, too, did everything she could to help Max. She took him to the vet for regular checkups, and the vet provided a treatment plan to address Max's illnesses. Max was prescribed medications and special food to help him regain strength. The vet explained that the road to recovery would be long, but there was a possibility that Max could improve with the right care. Lilia spent hours researching how to take care of a sick dog. She watched videos, read books, and learned everything she could about animal care. Every morning, she would wake up early to help Max with his treatments and ensure he was as comfortable as possible. She also started drawing pictures of Max, her way of expressing her love and support for him. She would place them on the walls of the house, each one with a message of hope. One of the drawings read, "Max, you are strong. You are loved." As the weeks went by, Max's condition slowly improved. His eyes, once dull and lifeless, began to brighten. He started to wag his tail when Lilia came near, and his body grew stronger with each passing day. The transformation was gradual, but it was real. Lilia could see it in the way Max interacted with her. He was no longer the sad, sick dog who had been lying motionless in the corner of a cage. He was beginning to come back to life. One day, as the weather warmed up, Lilia decided it was time to take Max outside for the first time since they brought him home. She opened the back door to the garden and walked slowly to where Max was resting. She knelt beside him and gently lifted his head. "Come on, Max," she said softly. "It's time for you to see the garden." Max hesitated at first, his legs still a little unsteady, but with Lilia's encouragement, he took a few steps. His nose twitched as he sniffed the fresh air, and for the first time in what seemed like forever, a spark of curiosity flickered in his eyes. Slowly but surely, he began to move, exploring the space around him. Lilia walked alongside him, her heart full of joy as she watched Max take his first steps into the garden. She knew this was a big moment for him, a sign that he was recovering and becoming the dog he was meant to be. As the days turned into weeks, Max became more and more energetic. He would play in the garden, chasing after sticks and rolling in the grass. Lilia would join him, laughing as they ran together. Max's fur began to regain its shine, and his once sad eyes were now full of life and happiness. He was becoming the dog that Lilia had always dreamed of. Despite the progress, there were still moments when Max would struggle. Sometimes he would tire quickly, and other times he would become anxious. But Lilia never gave up on him. She continued to be there for him, offering comfort and reassurance whenever he needed it. She knew that the journey to full recovery wasn't a straight line, but she was determined to see it through. Anna, too, began to notice the change in Max. She could see how much he had improved, how much love and care had brought him back to life. It was hard to believe that the weak, sick dog they had first brought home was now a happy, energetic companion. One evening, as they sat together on the porch, Lilia looked at Max and smiled. "You've come so far, Max," she said, her voice filled with pride. "I knew you could do it." Max, now a healthy and vibrant dog, wagged his tail in response. He had found his forever home, and it was clear that Lilia's love and dedication had given him the chance he needed. They were no longer just two strangers who had crossed paths in a shelter. They were family. As the sun set behind them, Lilia wrapped her arms around Max, feeling the warmth of his body against hers. She knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Max had become not just her dog, but her best friend, and their bond was unbreakable. As the months passed, Lilia and Max's bond only grew stronger. The transformation in Max was nothing short of remarkable. He was no longer the frail, sickly dog they had found in the shelter, but a strong and joyful companion who loved to play, run, and explore the world around him. His once lifeless fur had regained its shine, and his eyes sparkled with the same curiosity and energy that Lilia had always imagined in a dog. They were inseparable. Lilia's life had changed in ways she never expected. Having Max by her side made every day brighter. She would wake up early each morning to greet him, her heart swelling with happiness as she saw the wag of his tail. He would follow her everywhere, whether she was working on her school projects or simply reading a book. Max had become her constant companion, always there to offer comfort and support when she needed it most. One day, as Lilia sat on the porch drawing, Max trotted over and lay beside her, resting his head on her lap. She smiled and ran her fingers through his fur, remembering how far they had come together. She thought back to the first time she had met him in the shelter, how weak and defeated he had looked. Now, Max was full of life, his energy infectious and his loyalty unwavering. It wasn't just Lilia who had grown attached to Max. Anna had witnessed firsthand the impact the dog had on her daughter. She had been cautious at first, worried about the challenges of caring for a sick dog, but now, she couldn't imagine their lives without him. Max had brought so much joy into their home. Anna would often find herself laughing as she watched Max chase after Lilia, his tail wagging furiously as she tossed a ball into the air for him to catch. Anna's heart had warmed to Max in a way she hadn't expected. She had never been particularly fond of dogs before, but seeing how much Lilia loved him, and how much Max had healed, made her realize just how special the bond between them truly was. There were moments when she would find herself talking to Max as if he were a member of the family. She had come to appreciate his quiet, steady presence, and she felt a deep sense of gratitude for the dog that had brought her daughter so much happiness. Despite his progress, Max still had moments of struggle. Some days, his old health problems would flare up, and he would become tired more quickly than usual. There were times when he would refuse to eat, his body still adjusting to the changes in his life. But Lilia never gave up on him. She would sit by his side, offering him food, comfort, and gentle encouragement. She had learned the value of patience and the importance of staying committed, no matter how difficult things might get. Max's journey was not without its setbacks. The road to recovery was long, and there were moments when both Lilia and her mother felt frustrated or discouraged. But they had never lost hope. They knew that Max had come so far, and with continued love and care, he would continue to improve. One of the most touching moments in their journey came when Lilia entered a local school competition. The school was holding a contest for the best friendship story, and Lilia knew immediately what she wanted to write about. She had spent weeks preparing her entry, pouring her heart into telling the story of how Max had come into her life and how they had grown together. In her story, Lilia described the first time she had seen Max in the shelter, how he had been lying alone in the corner of his cage, looking so defeated. She wrote about how she had made the decision to take him home, despite his illness, because she believed in his ability to heal and thrive. She shared how, little by little, Max had transformed from a sick and weak dog into a strong, joyful companion. And most of all, she wrote about the bond they shared, a bond that had been built on love, patience, and trust. Lilia's story was heartfelt and moving. When the day of the competition arrived, she nervously presented it to the judges, hoping they would understand the depth of her connection with Max. The judges were clearly impressed by the story, and when the results were announced, Lilia was overjoyed to learn that she had won first place. Her story had touched their hearts, and they could see just how much Max meant to her. At the award ceremony, Lilia stood proudly on the stage, holding the trophy in her hands. Her mother and Max were seated in the audience, both beaming with pride. Lilia's eyes shone with happiness as she took the microphone and addressed the crowd. "This story is for Max," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "He's not just a dog. He's my best friend, and I'll love him forever." The crowd applauded, and Max, sitting beside Anna, wagged his tail furiously as if he understood the significance of the moment. Lilia's heart swelled with pride as she looked out at the audience, knowing that her story had made a difference. She had not only shared the incredible journey of her friendship with Max, but she had also shown others the power of love, compassion, and the unbreakable bond between a dog and its owner. As they left the ceremony, Lilia hugged Max tightly, feeling the warmth of his body against hers. "We did it, Max," she whispered, her voice full of joy. "We're winners." Max licked her face affectionately, as if to say that, to him, they had already won. They had both come so far, and the journey was far from over. With each passing day, their bond grew stronger, and they faced the future together with hope, love, and the knowledge that nothing could break the friendship they had built. The days and months continued to pass, and with each one, Max and Lilia grew even closer. Max, who had once been weak and lethargic, was now a picture of health and vitality. His once dull coat now glistened in the sunlight, and his eyes sparkled with excitement whenever he saw Lilia. He had become more than just a dog to her. He was a constant source of joy, comfort, and companionship. He was her partner in all of life's adventures. As the seasons changed, so did Max. He loved running in the garden during the warm summer months, chasing after butterflies and basking in the sun. During the colder months, he curled up beside Lilia by the fireplace, his head resting on her lap as she read her favorite books aloud to him. There wasn't a single day that went by without them sharing a moment of happiness. Whether it was a game of fetch, a quiet cuddle, or simply sitting together watching the world go by, Lilia was growing too. She was no longer the little girl who had first walked into the shelter with wide eyes and big dreams. She had matured into a young woman, full of confidence and empathy, qualities that had been nurtured by her journey with Max. Max had taught her so much about love, resilience, and the importance of never giving up, even when things seemed difficult. It wasn't just Lilia who had changed. Anna, too, had become closer to Max. She had come to understand the depth of the bond between the two and realized how much Max had brought into their lives. Anna began taking Max on longer walks, enjoying the peaceful moments they spent together as they strolled through the park. She had grown to love the dog in her own way, and she appreciated how he had brought such joy to Lilia's life. They had all become a family, bound together not just by blood, but by their shared love for Max. One weekend, Lilia and Anna decided to take Max on a special trip to the nearby forest. It was a beautiful autumn day, the trees glowing in shades of gold and red. The air was crisp, and the ground was covered in fallen leaves. Lilia had been looking forward to this outing for weeks. She knew how much Max loved the outdoors, and she couldn't wait to see him run free in the woods, his tail wagging as he explored. As they walked through the forest, Max bounded ahead, his energy seeming endless as he chased after squirrels and sniffed every tree and rock. Lilia laughed as she tried to keep up with him, her heart full of joy as she watched him enjoy the freedom of the open space. Anna, walking beside her, smiled at the sight. "He's really something, isn't he?" she said softly. Lilia nodded. "He's the best thing that ever happened to me, Mom." After a while, they stopped for a break by a small creek. Lilia sat down on a rock, and Max trotted over to join her, resting his head on her lap. She stroked his fur gently, her heart swelling with gratitude. "We've been through so much together, Max," she whispered, her voice full of emotion. "I'm so glad you're here with me." Max looked up at her, his eyes full of trust and affection. It was as if he understood every word she said, as if he knew how much he meant to her. Lilia smiled through her tears, feeling a deep sense of peace wash over her. She had fought so hard to give him the life he deserved, and now here they were, together in the forest, stronger than ever. The rest of the day was spent exploring the woods. Max led the way, his tail wagging as he bounded ahead, always looking back to make sure Lilia and Anna were keeping up. Lilia followed him with a sense of contentment. She knew that no matter where they went, they would always be together. As they headed back home later that afternoon, Lilia reflected on how far they had come. She thought back to the first time she had seen Max in the shelter, to the moment when she had made the decision to bring him home. Back then, she had no idea what the future would hold, but now it was clear. Max was more than just a dog to her. He was a symbol of everything she had learned about love, perseverance, and the power of second chances. That evening, as they all sat together on the couch, Lilia wrapped her arms around Max, hugging him tightly. "You're my best friend, Max," she whispered, her voice full of gratitude. Max responded with a soft woof, his tail thumping against the couch in a sign of contentment. Anna, sitting beside them, smiled warmly. "We're a family now," she said, her voice filled with love, "and we've all been through something special together." Lilia looked at her mother, then at Max, and nodded. "We really are," she agreed, her heart full of happiness. The days ahead were filled with the usual adventures. Morning walks, playtime in the garden, and quiet evenings spent together as a family. But now everything felt different. There was a sense of fulfillment in their lives, a deep understanding that the love they shared was something truly special. Max had not only healed physically, but he had healed their hearts as well. He had shown them the power of love and the beauty of second chances. As Lilia sat beside Max that evening, her hand resting gently on his back, she made a promise to him. "I'll always take care of you, Max," she whispered softly. "You're my forever friend, and nothing will ever change that." Max looked up at her, his eyes full of love and gratitude, and in that moment, Lilia knew that no matter what the future held, they would always have each other. As the years passed, Max and Lilia's bond only deepened. Lilia had grown into a teenager, and while she faced all the challenges that came with growing up, school, friendships, and dreams for the future, Max remained by her side, a steady and loyal presence through it all. He had become more than just a dog. He was a part of her, a piece of her heart that would never fade. Max had become known in the neighborhood, not just as Lilia's dog, but as the dog who had overcome the odds. People often marveled at how energetic and happy he was, how full of life he had become after such a rough start. Lilia would tell them the story of how she found him in the shelter, of how he had been sick and scheduled for euthanasia, and how she had fought to give him a chance. Her eyes would sparkle as she spoke about the bond they had built and how far they had come. And it wasn't just Lilia who had grown. Anna had watched her daughter become a compassionate, patient, and determined young woman. She had seen Lilia's love for Max transform them both, and in turn, she had found herself growing closer to the dog who had once seemed so distant to her. Anna had started to take Max on longer walks, and they would spend hours together, talking about life and the simple pleasures that came with being in nature. Max, ever loyal, was there for both of them, providing comfort and companionship. One afternoon, as the family sat together on the porch, Lilia reflected on all that they had been through. She looked at Max, who was lying contentedly at her feet, his eyes soft and trusting. She reached down and scratched his ears, a smile spreading across her face. "I don't think I could ever say thank you enough," she said softly, her voice full of gratitude. Max looked up at her, his eyes meeting hers with a deep, knowing gaze. He seemed to understand, as he always did, that his journey with Lilia had been just as important for her as it had been for him. Lilia had been his savior, the one who gave him a second chance at life, but in turn, Max had saved her in ways she hadn't even realized at the time. He had taught her patience, resilience, and the power of unconditional love. He had shown her that no matter how broken something or someone might seem, there was always hope for healing. Lilia's thoughts were interrupted when Anna spoke up. "You've done an incredible thing for Max, Lilia," she said, her voice filled with pride. "And Max has done something incredible for you, too. He's given you so much love and taught you so many things. You've both been there for each other through it all." Lilia nodded, her heart swelling with love for both her mother and her dog. "I don't think I could have made it through without him," she said, her voice soft. "He's not just a dog, Mom. He's my best friend. He's my family." The bond they had formed was undeniable. It was built on years of care, love, and unwavering loyalty. Together, they had faced the challenges of Max's illness, the uncertainty of his future, and the slow but steady process of healing. And now, with each passing day, they had become a family in the truest sense of the word. As the sun began to set, casting a warm, golden glow across the landscape, Lilia and Max sat together on the porch, side by side. The world around them seemed peaceful and quiet, but inside Lilia's heart, there was a sense of completeness. She knew that whatever came next in her life, she would never have to face it alone. Max would always be by her side, her loyal companion, her best friend. "Max," Lilia whispered, her voice filled with love, "I'm so lucky to have you." Max lifted his head from her lap and looked up at her with those familiar, soulful eyes. He gave a soft, contented sigh, and his tail thumped gently against the ground. It was as if he was telling her, in his own way, that he was just as lucky to have her. They had both found something special in each other, a connection that transcended words. The years ahead would bring new adventures, challenges, and triumphs. Lilia would continue to grow, chase her dreams, and navigate the ups and downs of life. And through it all, Max would be there, steadfast and true, a reminder of the power of love, hope, and second chances. In that moment, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the stars began to appear in the sky, Lilia knew that she had made the right decision all those years ago in the shelter. By choosing Max, she had not only saved a dog's life, she had found a lifelong friend, a companion who would always be there, no matter where life took them. Together, they would face whatever the future held, because with love, anything was possible.